Welcome to another episode of the BS Podcast, the show that looks at how behavioural change insights are being applied in the wild. Episodes feature renowned behavioural experts across industries and organisations, from management and marketing to policy and public health, and more. Let's dive in and see what all the BS is about. Here's your host from The Behaviourist, Nick Hobson.
Hello, BS listeners, and welcome back to the show. Today's episode is the second of the new spin-off series called BS Buzz, where the focus is on cutting-edge new products and services that are behavioral related, behavioral inspired, designed, developed, mostly created with some sort of psychology and behavioral science in mind. And of course, it's not just me talking about these new offerings in the market because that would be really boring. Rather, it's a sit down with the people who are behind these companies. And for today's BS Buzz episode, we are sitting down and looking at Eliq. And Eliq is a fast-growing SaaS provider of customer engagement and energy insight software to the utilities industry. Based in Sweden and London, UK, Eliq serves 17 utilities globally with a SaaS platform delivering energy insights and customer engagement software, such as applications for mobile and web that enable customers to benefit from smart metering by better understanding and managing their energy use. And with me today, I have Håkan Ludvigsson and Will Ephraim, CEO and Head of Business Development, respectively, at Eliq. Serial entrepreneur, Håkan graduated from Chalmers School of Entrepreneurship and has a background in electrical engineering and innovation, and joined the Eliq founding team after exiting his previous company, AcoSense. A sales professional, Will has 13 years experience in utilities and a degree in international politics, and joined the Eliq team after previously working at Siemens and E.ON? E-O-N? I'm not sure. Will, is it E.ON? E.ON?
Yeah, E.ON's cool.
There you go. So if you followed there, I probably just fucked up maybe 10 of those words and pronunciations, but that's okay. Guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So there was a little bit of an explainer there of what Eliq is, but for myself and for listeners, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about what you guys do. And maybe just a little bit of the backstory of Eliq and how you guys got into this whole thing, which sounds really cool. So over to you to give us a little bit of a backstory.
All right, thank you, Nick. You have to stop me if I go on too long. It's my favorite topic. Yeah, sounds good. So we're actually, there were 5 of us that started Eliq about 5 years ago. So back then we'd been running a product company that was delivering home energy monitoring in Sweden. So it's a piece of hardware you connect to your electricity meter, you would read it in real time, and you get the data on your app. So we were at that for about 5 years before starting Eliq, and we built a really trying to fix sort of the experience around energy, because it's this invisible thing that's impacting your life quite a lot, mostly when you don't have access to it, and really, like, the only way you sort of interact with this mysterious thing is via this piece of paper that arrives in your in the post every month that mainly pisses you off. So something we wanted to do something about, and Sweden was actually the first country to do this thing called smart metering, which was this huge way that everybody was talking. Everybody were talking about sort of 10 years ago, and I think regionally across North America, it's quite widely adopted, and also getting there in Europe now. But anyway, it was this thing where customers would at the end of the day have to pay for these new meters to be installed in their houses, and actually wouldn't really see any benefit from it. They would still get the same paper bill. It's like lots of data about them being accumulated in a database somewhere that nobody was looking at. So, so yeah, that's sort of the backstory. But we decided in 2015 that if we're gonna keep building like an additional piece of hardware to go on top of the electricity meter to read it in real time and send it to our own database, that it's just come on, we shipped 100,000 of those devices, but it doesn't make any sense. If we want this to be 100 million, we need to be partnering with utility companies, and yeah. So that's sort of the backstory.
And when was the decision? You might have said this. I'm going to miss it in the story. Was it 2018 when you decided to sort of pivot, if you will, or to partner with these utility companies?
No, that's end 2015.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And was it always Eliq? Was there a name change in there somewhere?
There was. So before that, we were Exibea, and so it's a B2C company we're backed by IKEA, actually, and IKEA was our biggest, incidentally, our biggest customer also. Reseller.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sold the hardware in IKEA stores.
Yep.
No
for a Swedish
way.
company, yeah.
And did you have to build it like the other IKEA products with all its, or did it come ready-made and ready to install?
Yeah, it was fun. I spent a month in China in the factory we were working with it, like IKEA audits, and they had like they were making sure that it was like a proper IKEA product that came out of there. But we
Wow.
didn't do like the assembly thing because it's like electrical, component. It gets
Yeah. It would be unsafe. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. And Will, what when did you come on the scene with Eliq, and what's your sort of role there?
I came in midway through 2018. So obviously prior to Eliq, I'd worked at Siemens, so massive German engineering and technology firm, and before that E.ON, who are a German energy retailer but own multiple markets. So I think the thing that was really exciting is that I'd spent most of my career in utilities, in big technology-driven organizations that generally seem to fail to miss the point of actually engaging with the customer. We've got this great tech, we can do this. Of course everyone will want it. Of course everyone will take it up. Then nothing happened. I remember like in 2010, 2011, looking at smart homes with E.ON. I remember like forecasting, we're going to get like 1,000 sales in the first month. Loads of people are going to want it. And then you got like 10 and half were to employees. And then you realise, why would someone want that from a utility? Like, well, so far they just sent me a bill that I didn't like and I complained about. Why do they want to spend another 200, 250 pounds on that? So for me, really, it was the bit that's more interesting around energy is how do you engage with the customers and the impact that has. But also if we take that out at a macro level, if you can help energy consumers reduce energy, that's going to have a really big impact in terms of getting to where we need to be in terms of reducing CO2 and in climate change. So there's a macro element, but also that's helping our clients, the customers, utilities, to better engage with their customers.
Yeah. And I mean, we know that, with technology over the years, especially over the last 10, 20 years, industries have been disrupted and changed. It seems like there are particular industries that are just so slow to adopt change or to sort of get on these waves of movements. And it seems like utilities or energy is one of those. Like, why is it, like, you guys would, I'm sure you would know, like, why does it seem so bogged down and mired down in these like regulatory inefficiencies and all those sorts of things? Do you have any hypotheses there?
Yeah, I think it's sort of, in the eyes of a customer, the energy company, and it's sort of almost regardless of whether you have a regulated utility that there's just the one or there's like multiple of them in the market. It's almost seen like this thing, like it's like a letter from the tax office, basically. So it's like one of those things that you can't really. The perception is you can't really do anything about it. They're painful to deal with, and at the end of the day, you just have to sort of, the best way to deal with it is just pay it and get on with your life and spend your effort on something else. So I think that perception is in the mind of a lot of consumers, and yes, that's taking a little time to change. But we started to see really like in the UK market, which is one of the most competitive energy retail markets. Over the last sort of 3 or 4 or 5 years, we've seen some real, I don't know if disruption is the word, but some real like movement in the market where it used to be six companies. 5 years ago, it used to be 6 companies would be 95% of the market or so, and now we've seen one of the challenger companies grow to the size that they actually ended up buying out one of those 6 companies. So quite interesting that just by doing things differently, maybe not massively differently, but enough to kind of win the hearts of their customers.
And you said something there a couple minutes ago where, and this is how and I'm a psychologist. Like I think about these things. I think about mindsets and behaviors, my own and other people's. But when it comes to energy consumption, my own energy consumption and what I do in my house, you said that like energy is this invisible thing we take for granted, especially if we, like you said, if we have it and all is fine. And then it's so funny you said that it's this piece of paper that pisses you off. I have in my notes here. What did I say? I said, and then at the end of the month, you get a paper bill that annoys us ever so slightly. So I really hedged there, but I think it is something that pisses us off. And you go, what is like, what I didn't use, like, why is it so much more? But it's speaking sort of psychologically of the experience. It is just that. It's like, I go through my month and I do the things I do around my house. I run my appliances and I consume energy by living my life. And then I just get this bill and I annoyingly pay it. And then I enter into the next cycle of the following month and on and on and on. And that's as long as I've always remembered. I never really thought about it. I've never really thought about how it could become a better experience for myself, the end customer, the end user. So it makes so much sense now that I hear that there's something being done, which is really, really exciting. So for you guys, I can see the case for behaviors and behavioral science and psychology, but I'm curious as like, I'm sort of totally have my blinders and I'm biased, but for you guys, where did the whole behavioral part come in, and how do you think about it, and where does it play a part in the business for Eliq?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we've actually had a collaboration early on with actually two universities with people in design and human interface design research. And on the one side, and on the other side, we work with people from the psychology department at Gothenburg University. So we've sort of recognized early on that if we want to sort of make this interesting for people, we have to really find a way to make this part of people's everyday lives, and the way to do that is to kind of fix problems that they have, but also kind of create that sort of engagement loop with where you're forming habits and rewarding the user at the end of after making some effort, they want something to show for it, right? And that's just one of the things where if you've got an invisible, this invisible thing that you're trying to affect, and you only get feedback through a piece of paper at the end of the month, that's more challenging to do something with than if you actually have like a digital interface where you can do much more interesting things.
And can you go into that just to sort of bring it to life a little bit for people who are listening in? It's such a cool idea for like closing that feedback loop, instead of just one touch point, there's obviously multiple ones, and it's not a piece of paper, it's through some sort of digital interface. What does that look like, if you could sort of walk through an example and sort of bring it to life for listeners?
Yeah, sure. So basically most of the digital products that are built on our platform, there will be it'll be a mobile app. It will help consumers predominantly to understand how they're using energy in their homes. So how are they spending energy on different appliances, and is that good or bad? Is their heater efficient? Is it as efficient as it used to be, or has something happened? And there's like a whole array of different kinds of notifications and alerts and stuff on the back of when things do change. And because things do change, filters get clogged up, and those types of things. And so things that really help explaining what's happening in the house, and that can pinpoint based on your actual data and the analysis that we make, what are things that you could be doing differently. So just kind of bring that forward and make it easy for people to take a little step, see that they're making progress, feel a little bit good about that, and be feel more energized about taking the next little step again another time.
I think other parts that we build in as well, just quickly, is around getting user investment in the product in the app. So we want them to fill in a home profile about how they use energy in the home, number of occupants, size of the building, which helps like some of the algorithms that we run to provide the insights. But from a user perspective, actually, it's not, you're just not telling me what my breakdown of my consumption and my bill is. You've asked me what I have. Now it's personal to me. If you just told someone you spent this on these categories, and energy is interesting because you're right, there's like a disassociation between the bill and what you've used. But when we're starting to bring more points in where there's maybe something could go wrong, and maybe not everything's always going to be 100% in terms of the accuracy, it's more the perception of, we're just really mindful of getting that wrong. So once you've built up the trust, and if you think from a utilities as being like one of the least, and in Europe anyway, one of the least trusted industries, once you've built that back up, you don't want to break that.
That's really cool. And I think I've read something here, and so I'm going to read. This is just sort of one, I'd imagine one use case among many. So, quote, by offering tenants access to a mobile app where they can understand their consumption and make adjustments to their temperature settings during the day, they're talking about their heat, and replacing the radiator thermostats with sensors and remote controlled valves from COSA, it's a vendor, it's now possible to control the heating remotely to achieve a tenant's desired temperature. I mean, that sounds so cool. And like, it shouldn't sound so cool. It's like, given the world we live in with all of these technological advancements, like that should have been there like 10, 15, 20 years ago. But now that it's here, currently it's like, whoa, like state of the art, like welcome to the future, Is there, can you, is that a specific, is that what something you guys do regularly? Is that like a particular use case with heating? And is that something, is that the feedback you get from consumers?
So that's actually a specific implementation for Vattenfall, one of the biggest utilities in Europe. In this case, we're contributing to a part of that solution. We don't build the thermostats or those elements. But in this case, it's a really challenging situation because these are built like multi-family housing where the buildings are centrally heated. So people don't even if people feel like they're interested in being part of the reducing their climate impact or their costs, but they don't even get that monthly bill that's directly linked with their consumption. It's sort of there's a collective bill for the building that's split between the tenants, and that's tapping into a whole other sort of problem where we have this common problem that does my behavior really make a difference? I'm just one out of 25 clients here. Yeah.
That's, and I think so just to maybe zoom out a bit here, like let's look at the bigger picture, and obviously a lot of this comes to sort of reducing one's carbon footprint and doing our part in the fight against climate change and climate emergency, is the new term I've heard used. In this show, when I have my sort of the usual interview style, not this BS Buzz format, but at the end of each of those interviews, I ask my guests the big question, what I call the BBB, the big behavioral brainstorm, which is like, okay, you're smart behavioral scientists, and behavioral science is this tool that we can use to affect change in people's behaviors, employees and consumers and users. What is the one problem in the world today that can really stand to gain from a behavioral intervention? And I'm gathering the data right now over the last 52 episodes of the last year, and about 25 to 30%, or maybe call it a third, of all my guests say far and away that climate change is the one thing where behavioral science can sort of exercise and flex its muscles to fix this huge, huge problem. So on that note, Is this the big play for you guys? Like, this is such a this not only is this really cool for sort of like on the technology side, but it's also very noble, and it's getting at the heart of this really big problem. Is this something that you guys are, like, as individuals, passionate about and happy to be involved, in fixing the problem?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's coming from, I guess, a like big technology business background. They're trying to solve a lot of things with the technology. And there's loads of technology out there to do it, but generally speaking, and even in markets where there's disruptors and fast-growing energy suppliers doing cool new things with tech to reduce carbon, bringing in like different technologies like the use of electric vehicles and things like that and storage. But they're generally speaking very targeted at a techie audience, like someone that gets it. And I think the big opportunity is how do you get, there's some people that probably won't do anything or make any change, but there's probably maybe 70-80% of people that will, if nudged in the right direction. So how can you bring most people along there to enable that technology without, I think I'm into tech and I work in energy for years, but there's loads more things I could probably do at home than I've done. It's just building that over time. And I feel that I think probably back to one of your earlier questions around, why is energy and utilities so behind? I think they're very risk averse and there's lots of innovation and new things, but they kind of park it as a separate thing. They don't necessarily bring it in. So how do you access those perception of innovation to bring it to more people? But you need to do that in a simple way and take people on a journey to get there. And it's not just going to happen overnight, but at that macro level, it's exciting to be helping, helping our clients help their customers reduce their usage. That has some benefits for our clients as well on an engaged customer.
Yeah. And that's in reading up about you guys, that seemed to be one of the sort of the benefits of it, was that by having happier customers who are more engaged and more frequent touch points and getting this sort of this regular feedback, you have a happier customer, as I said, but you also, by virtue of that, a sort of positive byproduct is reduced consumption as well, which it seems like maybe some cynical person would say that those two things are negatively correlated, but in this case, you guys are showing with your technology and smart technology that you can have both at the same time, which is great. And I'll put the same question to you, Hakam. What is this? Is this for you a passion project of solving the climate emergency and reducing carbon footprint for people?
Yeah, so absolutely. It's a very sort of mission-driven company, and I think that goes for the people on the team as well. We, I think that this idea that sort of dawned on us in 2015 is that actually there's lots of technology to solve a lot of the when it comes to decarbonizing energy usage in our homes. There's lots of technology to do that today already, and probably 10, 15 years ago. But that's just reaching the really the techies, the early adopters these days, and we think that utilities are going to be the players to bring this out to a mass audience. So problem is that they need partners, they need help, they need people who understand, like who can bring the bits in that they're missing, and we think that we can, by sort of playing in this little bit of niche where we help them to connect with their customers and help their customers, we can really have a huge leverage of just our time and make a real impact.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And you guys recently, I think how I came across, as we were talking before we hit record here, just secured a Series A for 5 million euros, was it?
Yep.
Did I get that number right? So congrats. That's a big win for you guys. So with that, what's in store for Eliq over the next year? What are plans for growth and big wins for you guys? What's coming up in the next year or two?
Yes, and it's a very exciting time. It's going really fast at the moment. We're now 28 people, and this time next year will be about 55. So it's almost doubling. more or less. So that means lots of doing things lots differently and splitting up teams into smaller groups of people. And so on that side, it's very exciting, sort of within the company what's happening, and there's some new products that we're building, and then we're also expanding into other countries around Europe. So we've got now already people in Spain and Finland have joined us, and we've got a few more positions around Europe open as well. So yeah, today we've got a really strong sort of customer base around Scandinavia and the UK, and that's going to expand to a few more countries. So yeah, very exciting times. Becoming much more of a sort of Zoom type company now, with people in lots of different places calling in from different locations. But yeah, then at the same time, this is pandemic times, so a lot of people are calling in from home. It's a different.
And Will, what about you? What's in store for the next year for business development side of things?
I think it's obviously growing in the markets we're already in. I think it's looking at some new markets a bit more tactically, opportunities there. But I think, really looking to kind of grow out the customer base, but also make sure that our existing clients are getting the value from what we do, but also ultimately their customers are as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And along those lines, big picture, blue sky, like years down the road, what do you see, whether it's Eliq or whether it's just sort of common practice for these sorts of products? Like, what do you hope this sort of thing looks like for the average user, and what would you really want to see in, say, 10, 15, 20 years down the line when it comes to energy and consumption?
You mean from a user experience point of view, or?
Yeah, through technology, something like Eliq, let's say.
Yeah, so I would love it to see that everything, I don't know if it's going to be like mobile apps are going to be a thing still, but assuming they are, I would love to see that upgrading your home to use more energy efficient and technologies that are connected to the electricity grid and smart appliances. That would be sort of accessible without you having to pay for it. You could just have the savings pay for the technology. I would like those decisions to be super frictionless for people, just like kind of, I don't know, sign up flows for all the great apps out there. It should be really easy to take the right steps that are right for your energy usage and for your wallet at the end of the day. So, and while that's happening, I do think that the utility is going to play a much more central role in their customers' lives, and be a part of that new business. So that's probably the main sort of focus. And I think a lot of like what's happening right now is we're with our product, we're raising awareness around energy. So to some extent, people are spending more time thinking about this stuff. I don't necessarily think that that's the end goal. So we don't want people to always walk around and worrying about their energy consumption. But the journey to get there is going to be through first sort of raising awareness, but then getting tools that can help people deal with these things more and more automatically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Will, same question to you.
Yeah, pretty similar answer. I think it's as I said, there's a lot of Håkan said as well, there's a lot of technology out there to help deliver what's needed to get to from a kind of low carbon net zero perspective. I'd like to think majority of utilities in the world have something like Eliq do in the next 10 to 15 years, and it's widely adopted and used. And as Håkan said, it's how do you make it accessible for most people, not just those that that are techie that can afford it right now, and it doesn't necessarily need to stack up. How can you make it simple for everyone, no matter where they are in terms of the economic position, because that's where you're gonna have the biggest impact. But yeah, I guess something like Eliq do, but just across most of the utilities. And I'd like to think that if utilities don't do that, they won't be here. Someone else will have taken over, like a Tesla.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this in the debate of climate change, there's the question of like, how much does an individual's behavior matter? Well, it matters a great deal when you look at it on the aggregate. But then there's this sort of puzzling psychology where you ask the one person, they say, well, I'm a drop in the ocean. And there's a term for it. I can't remember what it is, but it's basically like a person gives him or herself license to not change their behavior because they think by trying it's not going to make a big difference. But the only way we make a difference is if everyone actually tries. And it's sort of this dilemma, this social dilemma in a sense. And I think what's not going to help is informing people and telling people that this is their psychology and that they need to do something about it. I think what's actually going to move the needle are products like this and companies like this and things like what you guys are doing with smart design and smart technology to nudge people towards a desired optimal behavior. So I'm really happy that you guys are doing what you're doing here with Eliq. It's so needed in all in markets, and I hope with your next whether it's this Series A or maybe your Series B, you come over the pond to North America to disrupt some of our utilities markets here. So, look, guys, thanks for coming on the show and geeking out with me and wishing you all the best. It sounds like you got some interviews to do to grow your team 2x over the next year. So, good luck with those.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having us on.
Hey, Nick here once more. A final farewell note before ending. All the show notes, links to papers, resources, and materials mentioned in this episode can be found on the BS podcast page of The Behaviorist, where you can find all episodes and lots of other interesting and easy to apply sciencey stuff. Just head on over to www.behaviorist.biz/BS podcast. The show is edited and co-produced by Laura Christine and Noel Rain, and visual artwork, banners, and animated GIFs created by the talented Iris Deng of dengit.org. That's DENGIT.org. Definitely go and check it out. Lastly, if you'd like to join me in the mission of spreading the good BS word, remember to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever else you get your podcast fix. Quite a bit of work goes into these episodes, and a little love would go a long way. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, remember, keep your facts ugly and your hypotheses beautiful.